What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and we have two UConn basketball games to talk about. Real games, not exhibitions, real games that actually count in the standings and that actually count for UConn's NCAA tournament seeding projections, Big East analytics, nets, Ken Palms, all of that fun stuff. Before we dive into those two big wins, blowout wins, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, like, share, do all of those things that make us happy as podcasters. Engagement is the name of the game, and that is the best way to help manipulate the formulas and the algorithms that control all of these apps that we love oh so much. All right. 92-56 win over Sacred Heart, 92-53 win over New Hampshire. Two wins in the course of 4 days. And both of them kind of followed a little bit of a similar pattern in the sense that I thought UConn got off to a little bit of a slow start in both games, especially the New Hampshire game, um, especially on the offensive end of the floor. My single biggest overarching takeaway from those two games is that in the minutes where the games were still competitive, right, where they were still the underdogs kind of had a thought in the back of their head, you know what, we got a chance, we might be able to make a little noise in this thing. It felt like UConn's offense was a little bit disjointed, and to be frank, I think that's something that we should have expected coming into this season, right? If you look at what last year's team was, it was Alex Caravan's second year, it was Donovan Klingen's second year, it was Hassan Diar's second year with the program. Tristan Newton was in his second year. Kim Spencer is a basketball savant, and I don't think it matters how many years he's within a program. He's probably going to know the offense better than the coaches day one. I thought Steph Castle, he could be hitting a little bit early, and he's still smart enough to be able to pick up on the stuff that they were doing. Really, really well. And even as a freshman, because he wasn't a great shooter, he was always going to kind of be a decoy anyway. That was their main core of guys that played this past season, right? All of them were veterans. All of them had a couple years within the program. All of them were older. All of them kind of understood either older year wise or maturity wise. And they kind of understood exactly what the staff was looking for and how that offense was going to get set up. And you could even see it in year two, some new things that were getting plugged into what they were running. And it's very different this year, right? Um, it's the first year that Aiden Mahaney has been in the program. It's the first year that Terrace Ross has been with the program. It's the first year that Liam McNeely has been with the program. All of those guys have dealt with things since they've arrived on campus in terms of transitioning into a new program for a number of different reasons, right? I don't think Sampson is ever going to be a threat offensively beyond being the rim runner, right? That's kind of what he does and who he is. Solo ball, Jayden Ross, Jalen Stewart. Yes, it's their second year with the program. They didn't really play last year, and part of the reason they didn't really play last year is the adjustment time that it took to kind of figure out what they needed to do on the offensive end of the floor. And you can combine all of those things, and I think that what we're seeing on the output, especially early, is it's just the sets that they're running are not quite as crisp. The timing coming off of screens is not quite as perfect. The angles that they are getting on those screens and the ability of the guards like Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer, that they were able to come off of those screens and maybe turn a pin down into a curl that functions as a ball screen, essentially, right? The way that they were able to kind of get an advantage coming off of a DHO. It's a little different for someone like an Aiden Mahaney, and it's not working quite as well for somebody like a Liam McNeely, which should be expected because those are two fifth-year guys, and you're replacing them with a third-year guy, his first year in a new program, and a freshman coming in straight out of high school. So it's not surprising to me that things are looking a little bit difficult. The other thing that really concerns is the wrong word, right? Because there's nothing that concerns me right now after two blowout wins over teams that UConn should blow out, right? But the other thing that I kind of flagged in watching this is just how much smaller UConn's backcourt is right now. Last year Tristan Newton is like 6'4", 210. He's a big physical dude. Cam Spencer is probably closer to 6'3", but again, like he's a physical dude, a strong dude, and a tough dude. Steph Castle is Steph Castle, Alex Caravan is Alex Caravan. Um, but the backcourt was big. This year, Aiden Mahaney is probably like 6'1" / 6'2", and he's much more slight than Cam Spencer or Tristan Newton. Hassan Diar is what, like 6 foot, 6'1", something like that. Even a guy like Solo Ball, who I think in an ideal world you want playing the two for this group, but he's had some time where he's at the three. Like he's a guy that's like 6'3", 6'4", where wingspan and athleticism allows him to play bigger than he was. And I think that combined with the fact that you went from the last couple of years having like 2.5 point guards on the floor together, two in 2023 when it was Tristan Newton and Andre Jackson together. And like this past season, Cam Spencer functions as a point guard within his offense in terms of what he could do as a facilitator. And Tristan Newton was the Cousy Award winner, the best point guard in college basketball. And Steph Castle was like a point guard coming up. He plays the game, he sees the game, he thinks the game like a point guard, right? You had all three of those guys out there. Whereas, Mahaney is more of a scorer that can handle the ball. Like you would call him a combo. He can create a little bit, but he's a scorer that handles the ball. And Solo Ball is a bucket getter, right? And Liam McNeely is a guy who is capable of making a pass, but again, like he is a scorer and a big wing, and kind of his effectiveness is as much as a shooter as it is as a playmaker, right? Hassan Diar is a point guard, but he is I still think that his like perfect role is the change of pace, come in, mess things up, torture opposing point guards, and create some stuff that way offensively. Like as a full time point guard, I think that he's not quite the level that Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer is, and I think it's a little bit of a weird fit within the offense. So like, it should not be a surprise to anybody that this was what the offense was going to kind of end up looking like early on in the season. And I think that the ceiling is there for them to get to where they need to be, right? Um, Part of the reason is that I do think that Aiden Mahaney has the ability to kind of eventually get to the point where he is the late clock guy that you can isolate and let go to work if running all of these sets doesn't end up working. I do think that Terrace Reed can be the outlet in the post that will leave a little bit of pressure where you throw the ball to him and you let him get in there and like bang a couple times and turn around and make a jump hook. Would love to see him stop leaving some of those shots around the rim short. It's when you're 6'11" and 250 with the wingspan that he has, and you see these layups that kind of don't ever really get above the level of the rim. Um, I gotta imagine that the staff is just as frustrated as I am watching that, but I think that he'll find a way to get there. He's a much more talented offensive weapon than Samson Johnson is, and frankly, I think that by Big East play, he will be the starting center on this roster. That's not any insight. That's not. I haven't talked to anybody on the staff about that. That's just kind of me seeing how they're playing and reading the tea leaves a little bit. Um, I think that Solo Ball still has room to kind of develop offensively. 5 from 3 against New Hampshire wasn't the greatest, right? Caravan's been really, really impressive. But again, Liam McNeely, too, is another guy I think has some upside. Now, to me, well, we're going to get into the defense in a second, but to me, like the real X factor for what this group can end up being, I think, is Jayden Ross. I think he brings an entirely different dynamic on the wing to what UConn currently has. They got a whole bunch of big athletic wings types, right? I think you can, I would put Solo Ball in that conversation. 6'4", long arms, really athletic scorer. Alex Caravan, he is the ultimate prototype big wing, can play three, can play four, can shoot it. Is apparently as good of a shot blocker as Emeka Okafor is these days. Um, he's the prototype there. I think you would put Liam McNeely in that conversation. I think you put Jalen Stewart in that conversation, but none of them have the ability in an ideal world to kind of be the 3-and-D threat that Jayden Ross is. And we saw him knock down a couple threes in New Hampshire in his first game. He scored 14 points. He had a couple plays. One, he got it on the left wing, squared a dude up, 2 dribbles, got to the rim, finished on the weak side. The next one, it came off a little DHO, takes 1 dribble from the 3-point line and goes and finishes on the other side of the rim with his left hand, which was really impressive how he was able to move and kind of cover ground. Um, he made some mistakes defensively, but they were errors of commission as opposed to errors of omission. And what I mean by that is, he's keeping the guy in front of him and he's getting a little too excited and reaches in and commits a foul late in the shot clock when he's got a guy 4 inches short of them playing one-on-one. It is uh, jumping a passing lane to try to get a steal and just missing it and then creating a driving lane open, right? And I think that with more reps and with more opportunity to play, he will know when to pick his spots better and he'll be able to figure like that stuff is fixable to me. It's the stuff where he doesn't realize a back cutter is going by him, and he got burned by that once on a baseline out of bounds play. But I don't think that that's to me that was more of an isolated incident than anything else. But the effort is there, the intensity is there, and most importantly, the ability is there. Like he can move his feet, he keeps his chest in front, he doesn't foul. I think he's a better defender than Liam McNeely. I think he's a better defender than Jalen Stewart. And for my money, like I think there's a real world where the best 2, 3, 4, 5 that UConn can put on the floor is solo ball, Jayden Ross, Alex Caravan, and Terrace Reed. I don't know if that's what it will come to fruition, but if you look at the upside of each one of those guys and what the development can be, those four are all really, really, really good. And I think that gives you the most size, athleticism, shot making, and kind of defensive potential. Um, I also don't think it's going to be quite as simple as that. This is a year where I look at this group and I very much say there are 9 guys and you're going to have to plug in gaps and you're going to have to kind of figure it out a little bit more based on matchup as opposed to last year. It was like, fuck it. They got to match up with us, try and stop us. I don't think that there was quite the level of talent disadvantage that other teams are going to be against when they take on UConn this year. And I mean, look, last year they had 2 top 10 picks, 2 other guys that got taken in the NBA draft, and a third guy that would have been a top 40 pick had he decided to keep his name in the NBA draft in Caribbean. It's not like that this year. I think you got a guy, you got a couple guys with pro potential. You got one guy that is, I would be relatively surprised if he doesn't end up being a first round pick in Caribbean. Um, but it's not the same level of talent as we saw last year or the year before. So there's going to be some development. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here. Um, but again, man, the way Jayden Ross moves is just different. Like you can see it with the some of the drives that he made. You can see it with his size. You look at him standing next to Jalen Stewart, right? And one guy has a little bit more of a wingspan and is a little bit taller and has a longer stride, and he just kind of glides across the floor. Like we've heard we've heard stuff like this from the staff about Jayden Ross before. Like last summer, that was one thing that I was hearing from the guys within the program was that Jayden Ross had a chance to be a pro, and they were really pleasantly surprised with what he had the potential to be. Right, and then we saw that Jalen Stewart was above him in the rotation once the season started and as the season continued going and remained above him in the rotation despite the fact that neither of them really played. And so part of me wonders had wondered if the hype about him again was a little bit of lip service. Like, is this the staff saying things to folks in the media to try to be able um, to light a fire under somebody, right? Or to motivate somebody else. And I don't think it is. Like watching that, like watching what he can do and watching the way that he plays, like it is, I think, I think that I'm trying to be little bit bearish because I don't want to contribute to putting the added weight of expectations on him. But I think that there's a real ceiling there that could be a lot of fun to see him develop by the time we get to February and March. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But I do think that there's a real potential for that to be the best 2 through 5 that you can get. Solo ball, Jayden Ross, Alex Caravan, and Terrace Reed. I do have questions about the point guard spot still. Asan and Aiden are not exactly the perfect fits for what UConn wants to run, but especially defensively, man. Like I think they got some real work to do on that end of the floor. You need when you don't have Donovan Clingan at the basket to erase everything, right? And your fives can be a little bit foul prone like Terrace Reed and Samson Johnson are. the priority becomes being able to keep people out of the paint, right? And it wasn't like last year they even had these great defenders, but Tristan Newton is a little bit bigger and more physical than Aiden Mahaney, and Cam Spencer is bigger and more physical than Hassan Diarra, and I think that some of the issues that they had on the defensive side of the ball last year were erased because you had the Great Wall of Bristol, making sure that you could take some risks and you could potentially make a mistake because nothing was happening at the basket. And that's not the case this year, right? So the perimeter defense needs to be better. And I'm a little concerned that the physical tools there are just not what they need to be for this team to be kind of elite defensively. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. And again, I do, someone needs to step forward at the point guard spot, whether it's Mahaney, whether it's Hassan Diarra, like somebody has to go out and claim that as their own. And I don't think either of the guys have really done it. I think that Diarra has probably been a little bit better than Mahaney. Overall, I think Mahaney, we saw, in the scrimmage with Rhode Island and against New Hampshire, we saw what he could be a little bit more offensively, whereas Hassan is just a much, much better defender. And I'm trying to be nice there. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But definitely some things that I think need working on. I take a little bit of solace in the fact that like the issues that we saw with offensive rebounding weren't really a thing. 11 total offensive rebounds for Sacred Heart in New Hampshire. It's also Sacred Heart in New Hampshire, so that's got to be taken with a grain of salt. But there's a lot to like about where they've gone since the exhibition and what has happened in the offseason, and also where they could end up being and what the future could end up being for this group. So I'm bullish. I think they got a real chance to be special. And it's going to be fun to see what happens. Lemoyne's coming up next. Lemoyne gets Syracuse a fight. That's not going to be a rollover opponent. So we'll see how that plays out. I will check in again with you guys after that game and after that performance. And hopefully it won't be a UConn loss I have to get on here and talk about. I have enough trouble having to deal with Tottenham unable to win a game. Don't let that happen to UConn. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.